How do you start a series? Obviously, you are the pilot. Trek didn't do that. The cage was too cerebral. So you get another better pilot with a sexier captain? Nope. Where no man has gone before is too full of deep themes or something. So guess we'll just start making some eps. Hey, this one's got a monster of the week. And it has all the people we really want. Sure, it's the third episode, but this is the 60s. Continuity's for squares. So today on Treknicity, we're retro-reviewing the first episode, but the episode that first introduced the world to Star Trek. The Man Trap. Not going through the joke, not doing quick wipe! This is Treknicity. Welcome to Treknicity, a Star Trek podcast, where we do the deep dive on all things Star Trek. I'm your host, Patrick Murray. With me are my co-hosts, Mike Raper and Lars DeSenza.
What's up?
Howdy.
Yay! Got more energy out of you than the first time we flubbed. So in this episode, I'm going to flub immediately and continue our series of retro reviews with the 1966 first season premiere episode, The Man Trap.
Yeah, this episode was written by Gene Roddenberry and a man named George Clayton Johnson. And it was directed by Mark Daniels, who's a prolific director for Star Trek the series, and directed some very well-known classic episodes like Space Seed, City on the Edge of Forever, Doomsday Machine. I think he directed a total of 14 episodes through the series run. And in this episode, the crew of the Enterprise visits planet M113. Couldn't even give it a name. They just had to give it a number. To conduct routine medical exams on a pair of archaeologists, because I guess they don't have a dock in the box on the planet. So a bazillion-dollar spaceship has to go and give them a physical. Great. But the mission turns deadly pretty quickly as crew members start to die. Imagine that, under mysterious circumstances. What follows is a hunt on the ship for a shape-shifting vampire monster that eats salt and takes the form of those that his victims love the most.
So after we get done with this, we're going to break out our brand new scoring system, and we're going to rate the show. Then you get to tell us how wrong we were about it. And as always, since the show is definitely older than us, and we're not that young, there's no need for spoilers here.
You know, the episode predates us by at least 12? No, sorry, 11?
For 4 years for me.
Yeah. Ooh.
Less than 10 for me.
Yeah, less than 10 for me as well.
Yeah.
8 years.
Don't know where you're getting your numbers.
I can't math today. I have the dumb.
Fair enough. We're recording this so bound to get there. You flub, I flub, you dumb. I don't know. But let's start with some trivia before we dig into the fun of this episode.
Yeah, so since we do the deep dive, we want to give you some trivia if you're one of the 4 or 5 people actually listening at this point. This was the first episode to actually air in 1966 on NBC. It was not the first episode that they actually produced. Why? Because NBC thought that the other episodes were a little too cerebral and they wanted a monster in their premiere episode. So that really starts what we are going to call the Trek trope of Monster of the Week. And it was also the first use of the man in the suit for the monster because it was cheap. So we start to see a lot of humanoid monsters in Star Trek. During the production, director Mark Daniels, he introduced a very clever system in which the cast who were not needed on the actual shoot would go sit at a table. They call it the cast table. And they would just practice upcoming scenes rather than going back to their dressing rooms. So that way in the filming process, if they felt that it was needed somebody to come on the screen quickly, they were just right there and they could just bring them in. And they kept us through the entire run of the original series, even when he wasn't doing the directing. Another fun thing is Grace Lee Whitney, Yeoman Rand, She thought that the Arboretum scene in this episode was one of the favorite ones that she ever did in any of the shows. She said that shooting the scene was really funny and the entire cast crew were just having a good time. Some crude jokes, imagine that, where the puppeteer of the plant that was under the table was trying to reach up her skirt. She described that episode as quote unquote filled with plenty of horrific and suspenseful moments, but it was a great debut episode for the series. It was Gene Roddenberry's actually his idea to have the monster in its illusory form speak Swahili to Uhura. And Kathy Fitzgibbon was on the show. She supplied him with the translation and said that what the monster actually says is, "How are you, friend? I think of you, beautiful lady. You should never know loneliness." What a fabulous pickup line. If I was still single, I would absolutely use that shit in a bar.
And fail.
Exactly. This is the first time on camera that Uhura wears a red uniform. Before this, in the Corbin Mike maneuver and in Mud's Women, she wore gold.
Yeah.
This is our first introduction to Dr. McCoy, and he is immediately shown to be much more complex and emotionally complex and deeply human. And it sets up a recurring pattern here for him being the foil to Spock, who in this episode tends to be a little colder than he will eventually develop into. There's a lot more crew you see walking the corridors in this episode than you would in later seasons, partly because later there were budgetary restraints. They couldn't afford to have all the extras. And they also wanted the main cast to be featured more prominent roles. And the production was getting more complicated, so they couldn't bring 30 people to walk up and down the halls to make the ship look like it was crowded. And this is the first time we start to see a long-standing tradition in Trek, disposable crew with no names. Now, normally they would be red shirts, and this one they're different colored shirts. But the idea of if you were called down on the landing party and you didn't have a name, yeah, you're toast.
I feel
And even if you had a name, they were still going to kill you. Although our count was 2 blue, 1 yellow, and 1 white, 1 black shirt in a white vest.
fair.
Gotta love it.
On that note, for those who don't know the history of the Red Shirt Geeks, which is who produces this show, that's where we got the name. Our actual original motto, which I guess still stands today, is every expendable hero has a home, or where every expendable hero has a home. And so, yeah, that's exactly where it came from.
Yes. That and trying to shop what we could find domain-wise.
Exactly.
That too. There's some serious trivia for you. So let's get down to what happened in this episode. So let's start with the Act 1 stuff. So Kirk, McCoy, and our first blue-shirted red shirt, and I already found my first typo, fix that, beamed down to planet M113, a dead planet, to do some checkups on a scientist and his wife. And that wife also happens to be McCoy's ex. They really quickly run into the ex, Nancy, who is young and perfect to McCoy, another woman to Kirk, and an even younger, hotter third woman to our red shirt. Kirk sends him out to die.
Yeah.
So after our titles, Kirk speaks about this in the past tense in his log. We meet Dr. Crater, who just wants salt. Must be cooking something. They banter about McCoy's ex, Nancy, until they hear her scream. They then run out to find our first dead red shirt. They blame it on the blue-shirted red shirt, to be specific. They blame it on the plant, despite the red circles all over his face.
Yeah.
Kirk and McCoy, GTFO, but not before Nancy reiterates their need for salt. Must be making a dry rub or something like that, because you need a lot of salt for that.
Well, it is a hot planet. They must be going for barbecue.
Well,
There you
they're
go.
going to have those salt pills to replace the sweat they lost.
Yep. On the bridge, Uhura starts flirting with Spock a little bit. Spock seems pretty much clueless. Then they hear about the dead dude. Spock seems not to give a damn. Uhura calls him on it, and he tells her to F off. So Kirk and McCoy then discuss the dead dude. McCoy said it wasn't the plant because of the skin mottling, also called suck circles. You'll understand why later. And then muses about his hot ex. Kirk, strangely showing no interest in a possible womanly conquest, snaps back that he wants to know why his dude is dead, dude, and storms out. So, thoughts so far?
I mean, it's a fairly typical start, right? You establish what they're there for. You immediately establish that something's wrong. and there's a mystery to be solved. And I swear to God, it feels like a Scooby Doo episode.
Yeah.
I do like the interplay with Uhura and Spock here, where she's actively trying to get him to say, what is it? Why don't you tell me I'm an attractive young woman, or ask me if I've ever been in love? What does the moon look like on a lazy evening? He's like, we don't have one.
Yeah.
So he just like totally misses it, you know.
Yeah.
And Kurt gives like the most awkward compliment ever when Bones is talking about Nancy. He says, she looks just like she did 20 years ago. He says, well, she's a handsome woman, but she doesn't look 25. Like, oh, that's why you're not chasing this one around. She's handsome.
Yeah. Like what? Uh, I mean, that should have been right there. Like the fact that Kirk called out the fact that she doesn't look young, should have
Yeah.
been like the first alert right there. That should have been his big red flag.
You're like, oh crap! Wait a minute. You're not trying to score with her, Jim? Oh shit! She must be a monster. Shoot her!
Exactly. I mean, come on. It's absolutely that should have been like. I mean, it was clear that every last one of them had the male dumb on right there. I mean, they were thinking with the wrong torpedo. That was just absolutely the wrongest way to go.
Yeah.
Oh, don't. Yeah. At least it's not what the monster does. Eee, that creeping. But we'll get there. So let's jump into Act 2 on this. So on the bridge, after blowing off her request for supplies, which apparently they wanted chili peppers or something instead of salt.
Yeah,
Somebody else.
it's important that they made a distinction that they were Mexican chili peppers. Not like Canadian chili peppers or whatever, or the ever famous Guatemalan insane peppers.
Yeah. They didn't have the ghost pepper at that point. So Kirk and Spock discuss the doctor and his wife, that they're perfectly healthy and that this plant can't be responsible for this. Even though it's a poisonous plant, it doesn't leave.
It's not going to leave sucker box.
Yeah. So McCoy calls him down to the dispensary, since apparently we don't have the sick bay yet, to tell them that the dead red shirt is completely salt-free. So really not tasty if you like eating red shirts. Then they make the connection between that and the incessant request for salt. So Kirk and McCoy go back down to question the doctor and bring some more delicious red shirts. So they discuss the salt sitch before Spock calls and distracts them just long enough for the doctor to RUNNOFT. So Kirk and McCoy give chase. The doctor, of course, runs ahead, finds another blue-red shirt who's been sucked off, and yells for Nancy, who's apparently hunched over the third yellow-shirted red shirt, who is also really short on electrolytes. Nancy then responds to the yelling by turning into Green, the yellow-shirted red shirt. It joins Kirk and McCoy, gives Kirk an excuse why that he was running around circling around. McCoy starts yelling for Nancy. Kirk blasts him for thinking with his glands, unironically in this case, because Kirk. And then the three of them beam up to a long, really creepy close-up of Green staring blankly for way too long.
Because they had to let us know.
Yeah. On the ship, Kirk calls for some searches while Green looks like he's never been here before. Kirk goes to the bridge, has Spock do some scans, and the only person they're finding on the planet is Dr. Crater walking in circles. Meanwhile, while that's happening, Green comes along Yeoman Rand and starts checking out her salt shaker. Jumps into the turbo lift with her, then follows her and the salt shaker out. After passing some other crewmen, we find out that Green isn't the only creepy monster on this ship. So Rand brings the food to Botanical to feed it to Sulu. They discuss their talking plant's gender. Monster Green creeps around until he wanders in and then finds Sulu and Rand and that hot, sexy, curvy salt shaker. He then runs out after the plant starts screaming at him. So Monster Green then spots Uhura and goes with some blackface with some bonus Swahili thrown in. Call from Kirk gets kind of ignored because Monster Green's getting his creep on, but then he gets distracted by Rand and a really shapely salt shaker. The monster finds the black-shirted red shirt in a white vest and starts following him. Meanwhile, in his quarters, McCoy can't sleep, so Kirk suggests drugs or maybe a red pill, or maybe get him taking the red pill or something. And then he goes off with Spock. Then Kirk and Spock go off to the planet.
So I want to ask if he takes the red pill, does he actually wake up from the Matrix?
Probably. So the monster then goes back, gets its Nancy back on once it finds McCoy's quarters, and goes full court and flirting with McCoy, and then gets him laid down. So meanwhile, Sulu and Rand find the black-shirted red shirt and the white vest sucked dry.
Yeah,
that's where we're at so far.
And then we go to commercial.
Yes,
so, you would think at this point, you would think, okay, something is badly wrong, and it's not a plant, and whatever it was, it's on the ship now.
Yep.
That's how hard can it be? Yeah, how hard can it be to figure this out, right? Pacing in the second act. I mean, usually in these older shows, you had the 4 acts. It's 4-act structure. Second act is usually the longest. In this one, it's very long. There's a lot that goes on in this one as far as the length of time, but the actual stuff that happens, it's not that much. This one suffered from pacing a little bit for me.
There's a lot of cutting back and forth. I actually had to reorder that because otherwise it was Kirk does this, then Green does this, then Kirk does this, then Green does this, then Kirk does this, then Green does this, and it is back and forth.
Yeah,
which if you're getting peak climax and 2 things are happening at once, heading towards a collision point, that's perfect timing. This was chaotic.
This was just trading off as opposed to building towards one central sort of climax.
Yeah, and they did in this one. They did some unusual stuff with the cameras too. There was a lot of overhead camera angles in this one, and they had a lot of close-ups in this, like extreme close-ups of people's faces, especially McCoy, because it was supposed to show tension and emotion. It was really strange to see this episode. I haven't seen it in a long time, and compare it to some of the later ones when they kind of had their, had the routine down.
Yeah.
I did see. I did also know. I'm sorry that when Patrick mentioned electrolytes, all I could think of was Brondo. Why did they just give it a case of Brondo and it would have been fine? Because it has what plants crave.
Yes, that's it. Okay.
Just give it Gatorade; it'll be fine.
Yeah, and then drown the monster in Gatorade. Yes. So okay, so that brings us to. We cut back after the shocking revelation that Monster Nancy's got her flirt on here. Gets McCoy put to sleep, and for some reason doesn't get on with the desalinization. But instead she just slaps on a McCoy skin so she can walk around. Kirk and Spock walk around the planet with no fear of dying, where everyone else does because plot armor. They find Dr. Crater. Kirk tries to reason with him, but then suddenly gets a call about the dead red shirt. The black-shirted red shirt in the white vest. This is getting confusing. Why can't we get red shirts here?
They'll come soon enough.
It gets easier later. We'll be good.
Yeah.
Then Spock finds the dead body of Green, our yellow-shirted red shirt, and Kirk figures out that the worst has happened. So Kirk calls up to lock down the ship. We get a whole bunch of people scurrying around, and then the real red shirts come out. None of them die, though, for some reason. On the planet, Dr. Crater starts shooting at Kirk for some reason. Meanwhile, on the bridge, the McCoy monster pops up, and as they're discussing what to do, and Monster Mac decides that it's out that it might be a creature while he's trying to get info. So, back on the planet, Kirk managed to stun Crater in the most hilarious way possible, as in,
yes,
it is dorky.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
But here we go. This is spill the beans time. Creator says that his wife is actually the last of her kind. The actual Nancy's dead because salt vampire monster sucked her dry because the creature needs salt. Spoiler alert if you didn't guess that one by now.
Yeah.
It needs more salt than I put on my fries as a kid. And I bury it in that shit. I mean, they're like, here's a French fry, salt. Seriously, that was ridiculous.
So one of those things where if they handed you a salt lick, you would put salt on it?
Yes. Salt my salt lick. Also have fries with my salt.
Yeah, this part of the show, or this part of the episode, to me is where things start to fall apart.
Or speed up.
There is no good reason, narratively at all, for Crater to try to shoot at Captain Kirk. I was like, what did you think you were going to accomplish? The monster isn't even on the damn planet anymore. It's on his ship. Are you going to shoot all 400 of them? The only reason they did it was to force the confrontation so he could say what was going on. It was,
and Kirk could look cool.
So, it was just, but he didn't look cool. It was so bad.
The thing is,
it looked cool until he shot him. Pew!
Yeah, I guess. It just, the whole time I'm just like, this makes zero sense for this to happen. And it was just like, we got to get the story going. He has to tell him what's going on.
I think I want to break Kirk as not being the one to provoke the confrontation. Even though he was the more action hero, they did it that way so that he reacted as opposed to instigated the incident.
Hi,
I'm Kirk. Bang.
Yeah, you couldn't have had like a discussion,
Which, on a side note, proves that Captain Kirk is not as cool as Han Solo because Han always shoots first.
It's a completely different franchise, but hey, we might cover that one day.
You know who's cooler?
The other problem I have with this, I'm like, okay, so let me see if I got this right. This thing ate your wife, and you just want to feed it salt and keep it around? To hell with that, man. I would have. With that gun you just shot at Captain Kirk with, shoot the damn thing.
Yeah, like I mean, were you so distraught? Like did you have to have some visage of your wife around, otherwise you'd go insane? Because
that's what holograms are for.
If a monster killed my wife and I had the means by which to take my vengeance, pew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. If some salt-eating monster ate my wife, I'm like, oh, you're going down, and it's going to take a while. This is going to be painful for you.
Yes.
You're going to be, and you're going to be really tasty because you're full of salt.
Yeah. It's just
tasty.
Again, this part of the show, or this is where, to me, the episode just starts to go off the rails and make no sense.
For me, I do have a production comment here, and that is, that for the episode that we're watching, I mean, all these episodes we're watching them on a streaming service. So now they're only showing the digitally remastered versions of these. So, they're not using the models anymore. They're using CGI ships and space scenes and things of that nature. And they added other stuff to make it look better. Well, why didn't they do the same thing for the shape shifting for Nancy? Because it was literally, you could see, I'm sitting there watching it because I'm at my desk. I got my screen up here and I'm watching it prior to the episode. And I'm like, I could see it literally freeze frames. And then it holds for a good 2 seconds before it even starts to change. I'm like, you have all this technology. You couldn't make that faster or make it better. I mean, come on. I could probably do it better, and I suck. So that was one thing I noticed.
To be fair, though, the ship model stuff was really rough.
I don't know who did the digitally remastering of this. The planet side scenes were like, especially for episodes like Arena, where they did add they did effects to add more depth to the planet to make it seem like it wasn't just a setup set
somewhere in California, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
A soundstage with a matte painting.
Exactly. They did a really good job of making it look more like an alien planet. But for some reason, like the starship movements, even like still looked really bad. I mean, I guess it just goes along with the entire production of this entire episode. But again, it's just a comment I wanted to make that wow, I think they could have done so much better.
I do remember hearing in an interview from the people who were doing these that they, especially early on, they were pushed to hurry up and get the stuff done so fast that they really didn't get the time to go back and correct or fix a lot of things they would like to have. Me, I would love to see somebody do a remaster and fix a lot of the stuff we're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like people have been talking about going and remastering Deep Space Nine.
Oh, please.
Yes, I'm like, yes, I'll take that. I'll take that.
That would be awesome. So let's bring it home here. So everybody gets into the conference room to discuss how to trap old Salty as Monster McCoy sits there listening to everything they're planning and explaining how the monster is trying to survive. And Dr. Crater's helping explain this. So Kirk threatens Crater, help us, your bone, because we can always court-martial you. And then instead, the doctor talks about dead Nancy and monster Nancy. Shatner gets up, does his usual ham-fisted line read. Crater says, nope, I'm not helping you. Spock suggests true serum, which, of course, Monster Mac gets to give to him. So off they go, Spock and Monster Mac and the doctor. We cut to Kirk running to the dispensary and to find Dr. Crater sucked to death and Spock all messed up. Luckily, the monster didn't really think Spock tasted good.
Yeah.
We haven't heard of green blood yet, but we all know it's the green blood. So it likes red sauce, not verde.
Yeah, it doesn't like tomatillo.
Yeah. Well, that stuff's tasty. So Monster goes back to McCoy, gets its Nancy skin back on. Kirk follows, fills McCoy in on what's going on, and pulls out the salt tablets and offers them to Nancy the monster. Nancy, they argue a little bit. Nancy grabs the salt. McCoy grabs for Kirk's phaser and fights it away from him somehow. And then Nancy decides to get the desalinization on with Kirk. Spock shows up, and when McCoy won't shoot, Spock starts just double fist punching the living shit out of her. She bitch slaps him down easily. Finally, then, Nancy shows her true form with a mouth that both says, "Oh yeah, baby," and "Ah, hell no," and then returns to sucking the salt out of the captain, which, as you can see if the screenshot's more of a bad alien hand job. Kirk yells comedically because it's Shatner, and McCoy finally shoots her. Then then the monster shoots the Nancy skeleton one more time before McCoy blasts her dead and she falls over. So we cut finally to the bridge. Kirk and Spock muse about murdering out a species, and then they take off because it's over. It's dead. Let's go. Boom.
Yep.
I have a feeling that the reason why Kirk screamed the way he did when the salt vampire was sucking off his face is
they give Sulu too many lines.
I'm pretty sure it was more that he could see the original script that was supposed to be a two-parter.
Yeah. This, again, I mean, there were some good parts and bad parts of this. I do think this is one of those very early examples of Kirk being able to think on his feet. He's like, oh, I got to prove this thing's what it is. Here's some salt pills. Go ahead. You know you want it. And it worked, right? It worked, except McCoy is thinking with little McCoy instead of big
his
McCoy.
glands.
It still doesn't get it. Dude, what does it take? It's also before they established that Spock as a Vulcan is much stronger than a human, and he gets just beat down by this monster.
That wasn't a beatdown. That was a bitch slap. I mean, just like pow.
Yeah, but it does at least
if this was
convince
TNG,
McCoy.
that would have been Worf.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Got to show how the monster works. But at least it did convince McCoy that okay, yeah, this isn't Nancy.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that should have been enough right there to snap him out of it completely.
Yep. But no, it takes a little bit before they make another species go extinct.
Which, I mean, this is one of those early, it's an early example of a moral dilemma for Star Trek. It just wasn't much of a dilemma because they didn't hesitate to blow her away. There was no like, oh man, we need to capture her and take her to a zoo, whatever, and feed her salt. No, just shoot her.
Yeah, it's like they know it's the last of its species, so why not do something to try to repopulate the species?
You mean like maybe put the phaser on stun?
Yeah, or
Yeah.
anything, just anything.
Yeah. Even Janeway would have tried to save the monster, and she's a genocidal maniac. Come on.
Well, the funny thing is, this is an episode. It's one of the. I think this is the first one where they actually say, "Stun and kill our phaser settings." So it's like, why didn't you stun it? It's like, we'll just blow it away.
Yeah, they could easily kept it in stasis, found another planet, and I mean, I guess you could have argued the prime directive here because quite clearly, just because it had shape-shifting abilities, that it was an evolved species. It obviously didn't reach the point of achieving warp drive, so because it was the last of its kind and there's no technology to speak of, but still they could have kept it in stasis. They could have taken it to a planet that was either rich in salt deposits in the planet and a way to extract that so it could live its life out in comfort, or they could have taken it to a planet that was like mostly water and salt water and left the ability to extract that out of the water or whatever. Just something. They could have taken it somewhere to give it a life that was worth living and not just suffering the entire time on this barren ass planet with some old fart that was having to scam salt for her.
Well, that's the other thing is, how did this thing live on this planet where there wasn't an abundant supply of salt? There were millions of them. According to Crater, there were once millions of these. Well, what the hell were they eating? They didn't eat all the salt in the whole damn planet, did they?
Maybe they did. I mean,
because a lot of salt.
I had a theory about that when I was watching. I was thinking maybe the planet was actually rich in life. It had a thriving ecosystem, but they basically strip mined the planet by living on it.
That's possible, in which case you probably shouldn't let them go extinct. But it's like I said, it's an early example of a moral dilemma that they just didn't do anything with it. They set it up that it's the last one, and then they blow it away anyway, and they head to the bridge and say, "Let's rock."
Yeah, we're out here.
Yep. So I think that's pretty much everything we can do. So I think we're ready to score this.
All right, let's hit it.
This is brand new. Let's read. Let's see here. The rating. We're going from warp 1 to warp 5. Warp 1 barely moving. Let's hope nobody sees the log. Warp 2 got us from A to B. No dilithium burn. Warp 3 efficient, entertaining, nothing exploded. Warp 4 smooth, fast, emotionally resonant. Warp 5 engage. It boldly goes. Enough said. So let's do this.
All right. I gave this one a 2. I thought it was okay. I will give it. I would have given it less, but I recognize that it's a very early episode. They hadn't quite found their feet yet. But this was not, to me, a very particularly good episode.
I think I'm going to come in with Warp 3 because it gets the job done. It's an average episode. Yeah, you're still seeing a little bit of the learning curve. I mean, it's not TNG level of learning curve. Season 1 learning curve. But yeah, you're seeing the potential of the show. You're seeing what Kirk can do. You're seeing other people. You're seeing a crew, and you're seeing a lot of stuff. But it's nothing special, but not... we got through this. It's not Spock's brain.
Yeah, it's not that one.
Yeah, that's
all right. How about you, Lars? What'd you come up with?
Spock's brain, we're going to probably have to come up with a new rating, probably Sunlight. Anyways, I'm going to give this a Warp 3. Very much the same reasons. And I think it's because this is more of a good example of how to put the story together. It is, kind of a little clunky in areas on executing it. Definitely gave us a lot of the tropes that are
Mhm.
still evident in Star Trek today, over 50 years later. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
over 60 years later. So, I mean, we're, um,
It's a better monster of the week than we will see in the future.
Yes, I will give it that. Well, with a 2, a 3, and a 3, that gives us a mean score of 2.67. So just above the midpoint on our scale. Now, we did a previous episode where we did the cage, the pilot, and we had not implemented a rating system yet. But we've talked about that and we did our ratings for that. So, what did you guys come up with for the cage so we can go ahead and just make it public?
Yeah, let's just get that right now. For the cage, I'm trying to think now because my brain just completely blanked. I will actually go. I'm gonna go with a warp 3 on that one.
Right?
It is the first pilot. It is a clunky mess.
Yeah.
And they spend way too much on trying to figure out how to breed the captain. But it has some good story beats. It tells the story well, and it gives us stuff to think about. But
Yeah.
the clunkiness kind of puts it back into average for me.
Okay. Lars, how about you, bud?
I gave it a warp 2, simply because it was solid enough on its legs, but it barely got us from A to B on that one. As Patrick said, they spent far too much time trying to figure out how to breed the captain, and then of course they spend the other 3 seasons of the show with Shatner, with him trying to figure out how to breed the captain. Um, but ultimately, it was the I don't know. I really couldn't with it. I think it's probably because Jeffrey Hunter tried to play Pike too serious. Now, for those who don't know,
So we got emotional Spock.
exactly. For those who don't know Jeffrey Hunter as an actor, he was I guess the poster child for the '60s action man, and that's why he actually didn't come back to do the second pilot. They had approached him about doing that. However, he turned around and said, "You know what? I can do movies and I can get more money.
Mhm.
If y'all want to give me more money, I ain't gonna do your stupid little second pilot." And they're like, "We ain't gonna give you no more money, so we can get somebody else." And that's the thing is, he he was an action actor. That was his thing. It was his shtick. This was too cerebral, and that is the number one criticism, even that the studios had with the first pilot is Pike was too cerebral. He was not hard enough, even to the point where he's like, "Well, we should go take care of our own first. Get people, medicine, get hospitalization. I'm bumming out hard because of what happened on Delta Vega, not Delta Vega,
Make the Federation great again. Yes.
sorry, Rigel 7. My apologies, on Rigel 7, and
Yep.
so it was like, no, I can't do this. So that's why I give it warp 2.
Yeah, I gave it a 2 as well for similar reasons. Jeffrey Hunter's a fine actor. I've seen him in other things. The way they wrote the character Pike, he's just not likable. He literally starts the show or the episode bitching and whining about how hard it is to be captain, and I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to go sell, Orion slave women. What?
I'm gonna
And
Like,
so
Yeah.
it
You're
felt
not
more
charismatic
like,
enough, dude.
yeah, it felt more, honestly, it felt more like a Twilight Zone episode than it did a Star Trek episode.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
You
gave
have
it a
to.
2.
Yeah. You have to have Jeffrey. Can't be Jeffrey Hunter. You have to have Anson Mount Hair to be that moody.
yeah, I
And
Well,
think
get
if
away
you
with it.
look, but you compare the two characters, I mean, it's the same character played completely different.
Yep.
But with a 2, a 2, and a 3, that gives this one an average score of 2.33. So currently, with our 2 rated episodes, this one is the least.
so far.
So
Yep.
we will continue to rate episodes as we go and tell you where each episode falls in our score, which ones are above and which ones are below.
And then probably at the end of a season, we'll probably bring out the big. Here's how these rate chart.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, And then we'll probably do some shuffling for a retrospect. I don't know. We'll figure that out. Because we're still trying to figure out our format too, just like the original series did. So that's our review for The Man Trap, which for some reason that title just reminds me of my ex for some reason. So did we get this right? Miss anything? Agree? Disagree? Let us know. We'll figure it. Then we'll see what's going on. So thank you for joining us here on Treknicity, where we do the deep dive on all things Star Trek. I'm your host, Patrick Murray, and with me, my co-host, Mike Raper, Lars DeSenza. Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Treknicity.com, as well as visiting all of our socials listed here, the Facebook, the Blue Sky, Insta, TikTok, YouTube.
Oh, sorry.
Break my flow. Or find us on your find us on your favorite podcast service, such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. If you have ideas for future episodes, please feel free to drop a comment in this video or reach out to us on any of the social medias. And as always, rock out with your Spock out. Next time.